on this computer. Okay, excellent. Can you see it now? Yep. Okay, excellent. Thank you for letting me know.
And you're recording now, I think.
Yes, it's all working. Okay. Just as I mentioned, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Connect, that would be great. We're just talking about heat waves and how they're going to be more common in the future. And actually, when I say they impact us all, they impact some people. So pregnant women, people with chronic illnesses, people with mental health, outdoor workers, athletes, you know, a whole range of people. So it has a really big impact. This is when I travelled back to Canberra. I see this image on the left-hand side. This is at Lynham Oval. You can see that trees were starting to die. So not only do people wilt, but you know, the landscape wilts. This is also this image down the bottom here shows at a body corporate in Canberra how the hedges have died, the Japanese maples have died, and you know, this is a really sad situation. And so what we also get is with the build up of all these buildings is the need to use artificial air conditioning. Just excuse me for 1 minute, just 1 minute. Okay, so the need to use air conditioning, which we end up loading up, you know, the electricity grid, which can lead to blackouts. And also there's a sense of disadvantage as well for those people who can't afford to own their own home. They often are in the poorest quality houses, and then they can't afford to cool them as well. So what we're really trying to do is create outdoor havens that can cool us during those heat waves. So here's some really interesting data to have a look at, and I've got information, I've extracted information for both the ACT. The closest we can get for Moruya is the Batemans Bay area, and then I've also got information, I thought I had Melbourne there as well. So this is a model that's available on the federal government's website, and I've chosen to use the worst case scenarios. So this is one with highest emissions and also hottest and driest. So if we look at what might be happening by 2050, which is only 30 years away, so hopefully we'll all be alive then, you can see that...
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to be alive, Guy. You can see the temperature increases, you know, about 2 degrees, you know, that's not that bad. But also here, particularly for the ACT, and I think that's because it's inland, maybe up to 1/5 decrease in rainfall, that starts to get really significant. And then you can also get these reference towns, so what your climate may be like. So for those of us, say, in the Moruya area, our climate might be more like Wagga Wagga, or, you know, Melbourne's can be like Wagga Wagga, and these are kind of hot, dry places. So this is just sort of based on data modelling. But it gets worse. By 2090, you can see ACT, Batemans Bay and Melbourne are all there. So that's looking pretty scary, 4.6 degrees, quarter decrease in rainfall, and these are the reference towns. So this is based on a whole lot of scientific data. So you can go online and fiddle, it's just climate analog tool, and you can fiddle with this. You can model better scenarios, but I feel like given the lack of action at a federal government level, it's best to be on the slightly pessimistic side and plan for the worst and hopefully get a better outcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create an outdoor haven or micro oasis. And one of the things I'll do is I'll show you examples from what we've done here in our garden in Moruya. We've been lucky enough to build a 1-bedroom house. This, so you can north to the top of the page. So all the living and bedroom of the house all face north, so north's along this long axis. And what we've done is created this courtyard or micro oasis that plays a role in cooling the house. it's also sheltered to the west. We've created a very dense planting, and I call these a microforest. So I've used a dense planting of natives to the west. And you can see too that we've done quite a bit of water harvesting. So the water harvesting is from this 23,000 litre tank, we have overflow pipes that go into a frog pond that in turn flows into another overflow pond and then eventually goes down into the creek. So I'm going to be using some examples from here, but also some other places I've designed as well. Just so some of you know us, this is obviously myself and Peter. This is Finbar. That's Kira, the chook killer, up in the garden bed. And just some other images. So this garden here is only 3 years old and still growing, and you can see that, you know, fences are still exposed. But the idea is eventually we want to create a lush, densely planted place, and the idea is that those plants, through evapotranspiration, act like nature's air conditioners. The other thing to note here is the use of permeable paving. I like to use materials that the water can go through. So the water's going down into the soil and cooling the earth and then re-evaporates. And then you're able to grow things here like the dichondra. Dichondra is also known as kidney weed. It grows really nicely through the gravel. So that dichondra actually grows in the ACT, but only during wet periods. It's a native, but it grows quite well down here on the south coast. I'm also going to be taking this example from this courtyard in Lyneham. It's a 4 by 8 metre courtyard and could do with a garden. So what I'm going to be doing is when I share with you the grid method, I'm going to be modelling how I do it in real life for a garden courtyard. So I'm going to take this as an example. So that will be good for some of you might only have really small spaces that you're looking at designing, whereas we can reference what we're doing back here with a much bigger space. So the garden we have, this first portion's 1,000 square metres, and then we have a second portion on our block as well. So we have 2,000 square metres altogether. So the first part of this session, I'm going to talk to you about some of the materials you're going to need. So I've listed some of those there. Probably what the most crucial materials are, a scale ruler is incredibly handy, but I often just use a scale of 1:100. That means 1 centimetre equals 1 metre on the ground. So if you're going to be working at that scale, you could just use a normal ruler, because 1 centimetre on the ruler is 1 metre on the, you know, on a piece of paper. The other thing I really like is just these. Now, I'm assuming you can see me. I can't see myself anymore. Can you see me?
Yep.
Yeah, you can see me. Okay, can you see this pen I'm holding up?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So I just tend to like these pens. These are Artline pens. When I was at university, so I finished uni as a mature student in 2000, we used to use pens with nibs that used to block, and they had refillable cartridges in them. But these are really handy. Even just simple Artline black pens. But what you're looking at is having pens of different weights. So those pens that I've shown there might be something like a 0.2, a 0.5 and a 0.8. You can also use these for drawing. They say drawing, graphic design, illustrations and documents. And they're also water resistant, which is handy as well. So the other thing you're going to need is some trace paper. I've shown you that example here. What's important to note on the trace paper is the GSM. So down here, this is only 65 GSM, and I'm actually finding it's too light for what I do. It crinkles really easily. I know in Canberra, it's really easy to pick up good quality equipment. So if you go to Eckersley's, you can pick up this equipment. Unfortunately, in Maria, we have a much more limited supply. So this is the only trace paper pad I was able to get here. So that's just something to think about. But you can buy sheets individually at different places as well. You may not need a whole pad. This pad's got 25 sheets. The other thing I've shown you, you don't need that roll of yellow trace. They're actually quite expensive. When I was at uni, we used to use greased baking paper. But that roll of yellow trace is something like $38, so you don't need that. The other thing, it's fantastic to have a pencil with, you know, I can't think what they're called, refillable pencil with leads. They're really useful. And I love, one of my favourite things is an artist eraser. So they're a kneadable eraser. Really nice for getting rid of sort of pencil lines and when you're playing around. If you're going to be using trace paper, and I do recommend you get hold of some trace paper, is a razor blade. That's because a razor blade can take off ink marks, whereas a rubber won't. So that's the only reason you'd really need a razor blade. You can use a whiteout pen as well to get rid of lines. That can be useful too. Clean desk is very important. One of the things I learned one of the things we were told at uni is try not to have your cup of tea or coffee on the clean desk that you're working on, because you know you just don't want to end up with a spill to ruin your drawing. So I graduated in 2000 and I've never managed to wreck an entire drawing by spilling something on it. Anyway, fingers crossed, not yet. The other thing is just some tape. So you want to, particularly when you're drawing, you want to be able to tape your paper down so that it's not moving around, and so that you can keep it all steady, because you're going to be doing a lot of tracing. So there's just some of the equipment. Also grid paper. You don't have to have grid paper, but you'll probably find it, particularly for next week, where we're going to start creating a grid. That's really useful. So you can buy those sheets individually as well. So some of the templates. So these templates of mine are over 20 years old. So that circle template I have loved. And it's actually broken, but I still use it all the time. Great even if you're wanting to create curves. And although we're going to be using a grid, the circle template can really open up possibilities. If you're into this sort of stuff, things like the furniture templates, see below, like that's at a scale of 1 to 200, they can be very useful as well. But I don't recommend you just go out and buy this for the sake of buying them. If you find them in a second-hand shop or on one of the Buy Nothing groups, you know, go for it, get them. But and this is also true for hand drawing. A lot of people, I know a lot of design schools these days don't teach hand drawing. I really like it because I feel like it's really important part of the creative process is still to be able to draw. Okay, I'm just going to check the time. Okay, cool. So I mentioned earlier that having a visual diary is a really great way to go. So I just might be something small like this that I can fit into a handbag or a backpack. Really handy. And I tend to take them on holidays with me, and I like to draw when I go away on holidays. But so this is just an example of a sketch from our courtyard, quick sketch of our courtyard pond. But also some plants that I've put in the garden. So something I'd recommend you do is that when you start collecting ideas for plants, keep them all in one place, but also when you start planting up your garden, keep all that information in one place, because I now keep forgetting. People ask me, what's that plant? And I'll say things like, oh, that's turmeric, but then later find out, well, it's not real turmeric, it's false turmeric. Yeah, so I think, you know, if you can be good at record keeping, that's great, and that will help you on your way. So I've just included here some examples of my drawings I've made over the years. So I've had a bit of a fun time going back through my visual diaries. I have a big plastic box full of visual diaries from the past 20 years or so. And one of the things I've noticed is how my drawing style has become a lot looser over that time. And having an expressive drawing style or learning to free yourself up means you can free yourself up to design possibilities. So I'd really encourage you. Look, some of you have probably never drawn before, and I know there's other people in the group who are artists. So don't feel intimidated by that. And what I'm really encouraging you to do is just have a go drawing. So this top left example, you can see, you know, this is the doodling process. These are actually some rocks, and here we're using cross hatching, just using really simple pens and a bit of black underlining to show shadowing, and then another drawing below. Just excuse me, I'm going to put the dog in the crate. Just one minute. Kira, come here. In there. Sorry about that. She was starting to tear a chair apart. Okay. So here's just some other drawings. The other thing I like to do is take photographs and then try and distill something down into its simplest elements. May not be obvious to you, but the left-hand drawing is from Ginninderra Falls. And often we can have a look at something in the landscape and get really caught up in all the detail. What we really need to be looking is, what is the overall form and what's a little bit of detail within that I can capture. Just some other different ideas. Here's it was a sculpture of a Buddha or someone similar in Bali, and just the different effects you can get on different paper. And here's just some sketches of vegetation. These two images on the left are from Laos. Was using a lovely paper, a handmade paper that was quite absorbent, and just a blue art line pen, so you can get a different quality. And then this is just using a black pen on I think that was pretty cheap paper. So I can feel the cheapness of that paper. Okay, so that was just about let's get expressive. If you haven't drawn, don't worry about it. And what I really want to encourage you to do in down times, and some of you will watch TV. I watch TV. I find it a good way to relax, but maybe get into the practice of having your visual diary and just doodling during that. I also, whenever I was in meetings, when I worked in the public service and it got really boring, I would be doodling, because at least it kept me awake and it looked like I was perhaps paying attention. Okay, just I don't do many landscape plans anymore for people, but this is just one I happen to be doing at the moment for someone, and just really what this is doing. This is actually probably one of the hardest designs I've ever done. I'm doing it with another landscape designer in Canberra. So I was just doing up the first stage, the sketch plan stage. It's been quite complicated because we've had a really big existing oak tree as part of the design, and what we're trying to do is create this really nice space, but it's been quite tricky because the clients wanted to reuse a lot of existing materials. So they had a lot of existing paving, and you know, I'm trying to create a design that meets a whole lot of different things they're trying to achieve. But one of the things here is this really strong line between this workshop and the various decks. So one of the things we'll be looking at in your design is and we call this circulation. How do we want people to circulate through those spaces? And with that circulation, we don't want to create too much paving, because then we create a whole lot of hard surfaces. And the other thing is, if we've got something like a big existing tree, is we want to create permeable surfaces underneath those surfaces. So we've ended up, and you know, the clients haven't come back yet to say if they're happy with this second iteration. But this is just to show you, I didn't have any other examples here of work I'd done. So just really to show you, you know, some of the stuff I've done. Right, we're going to start talking about the next stage, and that's about creating a base plan. Were there any questions? And I don't know if I can see questions. Did anyone want to ask a question, or can anyone see? Are there any questions there that anyone's asked? I can't see anything.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may. I can see it. Gay, I don't know why. You're the only one I can see at the moment. So
Sorry, everybody, if you can see me. So why is it that you don't do plans anymore?
well, I thought I was never going to be a landscape architect ever again. So when I sold my house last year in Canberra, I just thought I'm not going to do this again. But I suppose my thing is I do a lot of public projects, and I feel sometimes like just doing an individual plans just benefits one individual who can afford it, as opposed to when I work on community projects, it's available for everyone. So I don't know, does that make sense?
Yep.
Is there anyone else, even though I can't see you? I'll try. Oh, I can see more of you now. Were there any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, Edwina.
Yeah.
I've got a question. I'll give it a go, but I'm just kind of not into drawing.
Who's speaking? Who's saying?
Oh, Alice. This is Alice here.
Okay, Alice.
If I'm not I want to design a garden, but
yeah,
is there some way to do it where you don't have to kind of engage in visual art?
So Alice, the way for someone like you would be doing it on the ground. I also draw on the ground. So I will so you can get a hose, you can get surveyor's paint, and you mark out what you're thinking about on the ground. Okay. And so there you're seeing it in the 3D. But you've got to have, I think we can get you to a point where we can get you to go, yes, maybe this is important. And maybe to think.
Yeah, I'll definitely try it. I'm not saying I won't.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've got Kylie there today, but, you know, I don't know if people like Kylie have drawn before, but I think, you know, we can definitely, I think we should be open to the possibility of drawing, okay? Yeah. The other thing is in terms of, so landscape design is very much three-dimensional project. So the other thing you'd do is start playing around with, trees. So you'd put a big stick, not a stick, a big tomato stake or something where you thought the tree trunks might be going to go. So you're starting to play with that out in space.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Oh, okay, got a couple of things I wanted to talk about as well. This book is probably one of my favourite books from my time working as a landscape architect. John Brooks' Garden Masterclass, 2002. His method is the method we will be using. And I came across this method when I was a student of landscape architecture, and I think it's excellent. So it's a really good method for beginners. This book's got lots of lovely illustrations as well. So I don't know if you can see that, but some great illustrations. It's very well explained. So I'd be recommending, if you can find a second-hand copy of that book, that would be a beauty. In terms of sustainability, I like to promote sustainable principles. So not only about, you know, things like water-wise plants, and I'll probably talk more about that, but, you know, where do our landscape materials come from? This one's 2006 or 2008, but this is a good basic one for sustainable principles. Okay. So there's just a couple of books. Okay, so now that we've talked about kind of the creative process part, we do have to get down to the first bit is about creating a base plan. So what you're going to need to do today, or sometime before next week, is go away and find the plan of your house on your block. So I've just pulled out this one of our house that we built on our block. And the things that are really important. So basically what you do is, once you've got this plan, now some of you won't have the plan, and I know a few of you, like people like Morgan and Joss, are playing around with new house plans. But basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be finding this sheet of paper. Now hopefully it's going to be at a scale of at least 1:100. That means 1 centimetre equals 1 metre. Okay, if it's not, you're going to have to enlarge it. So it may be at a scale like 1:200. So you'll have to go, if you don't have a printer that can do that, so, some photocopiers can do it, but you'll probably have to go to your local library and enlarge your existing plan. So let's say this plan was at 1:200. What I would do is I would fold away any excess. So imagine that's my big sheet of paper, and pretend that's my plan there.
Oh, okay. So you get it really big. Mm.
So I fold away any excess paper that I didn't need to photocopy, and then I place this in the top left-hand side of the photocopier, and I select, there's usually a button like enlarge, and you can put in, say, 200%. So if it was at 1:200 and I wanted to make it to 1:100, I'd also have to select the A3 button and make double the size of it. Okay, so I think when you're starting off, working at a scale of 1:100 is very useful. So once you have your base plan to scale, that's when our trace paper comes in handy. And so what we do then, so we'd put our enlarged photocopier piece of paper down on our desk, and we'd actually tape it down, and then we'd overlay a sheet of trace paper. Okay. The sorts of things that I want to be recording are my building outline, my boundaries, my north symbol. So here, usually north is up the page, sometimes it's not. And any other key features. So for example, we might include this retaining wall. Let's say if my focus was on designing this space here. The other thing to be aware of, and hopefully they'll show up on a lot of your plans, say for example, we've got a sewer line here. Also, some of you will have this information. This is really handy. This is your contours. So contours are lines that join up points of equal height above sea level. So this is our 7 metre contour line here. That means we're 7 metres above sea level there. Our 8 metre, 9, 10. Also, when you're creating your base plan, you need to also locate perhaps adjoining residences. So if we're focusing on creating a courtyard space here, we're very interested in that adjoining residence up above here. So there's some detailed notes there about the base plan. If you don't have a base plan, I've got a link to a YouTube video there. So you're going to have to get someone to go out with you and look at key features. So who thinks they've got a base? Well, I know Gay's going to have a base plan. You've just built a house. Yep. Who thinks they don't have a plan? Okay, that's looking good. Unless I'm only seeing 4 of you, but Not quite sure why. Okay, so there's just some more examples of enlarging your base plan. The other thing is, once you've photocopied your base plan, you want to check you've got it to the right scale. So if you've got a scale ruler, you can do that. And often there'll be measurements on your plan that, so for example, if this, let's pretend our plan was at a scale of 1:200, and we let's say we knew this was 5.4 meters. If we've enlarged this to 1:100, this should then represent 5.4 centimeters just on a normal ruler. Anyway, that may be might be a bridge too far at the moment, and might be once you're actually doing it that will work out for you. Just some more information about base plans. So the things that you need to be locating. So we talked about the building. Also think about how you access your proposed space. Do you access is it a set of doors from the house? So that would be really good if we're trying to create an outdoor space. It's really important that it's near perhaps a living room. So if I just scroll back, here from our kitchen dining area, we have a set of sliding doors, as well as from our bedroom, we have sliding doors as well. Also make notations of the fences. Are they 1.8 or 1.5? They're the two standard height fences. Also make a note of, is there any existing paving or decks? Significant vegetation that you're going to retain that will provide screening or shade. Now, if you're plotting on trees that will provide shade, get an idea of, and you probably are going to have to go out with someone and measure this. Try work out where they are in relation to a feature you know, and plot the centre of the tree trunk, as well as the canopy diameter. So the diameter of the tree is that drip line of the tree, and that's really important. Also make a note if they're deciduous or evergreen. And also make a note about the health of the trees. I've come across a handy app for identifying plants. It doesn't always work. It's called PlantNet. It's a free app, so you can take a photograph of a plant. So in terms of diagnostic characteristics, it's really handy to have flowers as well for diagnosis, but leaves can diagnose with leaves as well. It's just called PlantNet. So I found that quite handy. I used it the other day trying to identify a fruiting plant that was behind the arts place down at the Riverside Park, and we found that it was a guava, so we could eat the fruit then.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier about contours. Some of you will have contour information. So these are the lines that connect places of equal height above sea level. And just a note on reading contour lines, the closer the contour line is together, the steeper the site. Also locate taps, because that's going to be important. How are you going to water this space? Where your downpipes are located is also important. So some of you may be thinking about installing some rainwater tanks. Also your easements, that's going to be important. That will, where your easements are, will allow you to do various things. So for example, some easements you can't build structures over. And for those of you who don't have all the data, so those of you who are working on new plans, which I know there's probably at least 3 of you, you won't need to worry about this, but you can also get free information from Dial Before You Dig. And I've got it's www.1100.com.au, and they will provide you all the information of your electricity, sewerage, where your various fibre optic is, that sort of thing as well, because that's very important to know where they are.
Okay.
So this is just creating a base plan and a site survey for that townhouse I spoke to you about in Lyneham. So although this, and what I've done is I've also gone onto Google Maps, that's the courtyard there. So although this courtyard doesn't have any trees of its own, I've been able to plot trees in the adjoining courtyards. So these are a tree called Zelkova serrata. There's also this large shrub adjacent to this car park. An interesting thing about this courtyard is there's a lot of heat will be generated off that bitumen car park. Now, once upon a time, I probably would have said, get rid of that privet, but at least at the moment, because privet's a weed, at least that privet's providing a little bit of extra shading. Unfortunately, at the moment in winter, it's probably only 3 or 4 metres high, but it's also blocking sun out to this space. So what I'd probably be recommending is planting up some other stuff along this. There's not much planted in here, so that you could eventually take out the privet, but for now. A little bit of a head, so I've noticed particularly something like air conditioning features, you're going to want to screen those off. Where the series board runs his townhouse. Plus a symbol here. So I'd really recommend you go onto Google Maps, zoom in. Maybe for those of you in the ACT, ActMap I think has higher resolution images that you can go and have a look at. And then what you need to start doing is do an assessment. So I've noted on that diagram that there's heat and noise, not that you can see that as well. And what, you know, I need to be thinking about as I do this analysis process, what can I do about those things? There is this trend. I know that in the ACT we get hot northwest. That's where most of the hot winds come from. In the ACT, the southerly are more the winds, but not really an issue in courtyard because this bank is a lot that are actually primary winds. You can do a thing that may come from session. So if you've got a business, you may be noting things like unattractive views to neighbours, or, you know, neighbour's deck overlooking back a garden, or, you know, ugly, I'm just looking out at my southern side, you know, a very unattractive house to our south here, you know, all those sorts of things. This courtyard, this is a greenhouse, so at night in summer this gets really hot, and so you're getting a lot of heat. So, you know, one of the things may be, you know, something like a water feature that can actually block out some of that sound, you know, having that sound of water happening there. Okay, so before next lesson, I'd really like you to get some paper, a visual diary. You need to find a copy of your house plan that you can start making a base for your design, because next week we're going to start on creating a grid and start on that designing process. I think the other thing that's really worthwhile doing is collecting images of gardens you like from Pinterest, or whatever, you know, whatever you do. You know, maybe you can buy magazines, go to the library, have a look at books in the library. And then next lesson, this is what we're going to start playing around with. We're going to start playing around with this grid, which is based on the John Brooks Garden Design book. Now, just because I've drawn the grid there in an angular way, you can use the grid. It doesn't mean you have to have straight lines and angles. You can use circles. That's completely fine. Now, the other thing just to remember, I'm going to be running a tutorial sessions more for asking questions, but as we go through starting to draw or design, various questions will come up. I'm going to run that from 12 to 1 each Wednesday. So you can log on then. If you're happy and confident, just go for it. And you don't necessarily need to turn up to those sessions. But we just give, because we aren't face-to-face, it will just give you a bit of extra support as we go along. And I suggest that you'd start your own tutorial group, if to share what you're thinking about and what you're doing, and also share the images you like and things you find on the closed Facebook group. So that's all I've got for you today. It's 10:20. Have we got questions?
Hi, Edwina. It's Selena here.
Hi, Selena.
Hi. I just had a quick question. You mentioned before using Google Maps to help map out the residence outline. You also mentioned in the ACT there was a map one.
ACT Map I. So ACT MAPI.
Right. Okay.
And some of those applications, also Google Maps, you can actually get measurements on them as well.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So have a look at that. That hopefully that should help.
Thanks.
We got
Edwina.
Yes.
Sorry, is the Victorian Alice?
Hi, Victorian Alice.
Just a quick question. I couldn't see the names of the books. Are you able to put them on the Facebook group?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Sure. Alice and Sarah, you had a question. Oh, I can't hear you. Hang on. Oh.
She's
Alice.
on mute.
Oh, how do we? I can't see you now. Hang on.
You need to
Sorry, I couldn't unmute my button. Sorry.
Oh, is that you, Alice?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to clarify. Sorry,
Yes.
I've had running in and out.
Yep.
That our homework for this week is it's not to do we put all those features into our
You want to create a base plan. So you want to get your house plan, put a piece of trace over the top of it, do your house outline, your fences.
I'll do all of those. Yeah, that's what we do.
Sorry, because
I saw the grid for next week and I thought, oh, maybe
we'll talk about how we develop that grid, but in order to start applying the grid, you're going to have your base plan ready.
Okay, so with all the vegetation and everything.
Look, if you can do, I know you've got a really big block.
I'm a bit overwhelmed by my garden.
So what I think for you, Alice, is it may be that you just choose a spot outside, maybe closest to the house. I think we might have spoken about this. So it could be that you choose a spot out from some living room doors or something, and that rather than focusing on your whole garden now, we start focusing on a bit close to the house that you're going to use really frequently.
Okay.
Because
I'll see how I go, because I might really get into it, and I'll do that anyway for the whole garden. But
so I don't think I've emphasised that properly. Is that it's really should be. I don't think there's any point creating an outdoor haven. If you've got 1,000 square metre block and you're creating an outdoor haven right down the very back garden, I don't think you're going to use it as frequently as if it was closer to the house. And so the idea too is that that outdoor haven is going to create a passive cooling for the house as well. So when we designed our house and garden, was that the vegetation, the idea was the vegetation, particularly when we started planting on the south, and the way we designed our windows of our house, so small low windows down low, high windows to the north, was that we could pull cool air in across that vegetation on the southern side of the house out through the house. So there's many ways you can do it, because we're not, or some actually, a couple of you aren't at the build stage, so there could be some elements of this that you incorporate into your plans. So look, if you've got other questions, are there any other questions now that you wanted to ask, or you can email me separately or text me. I did include my phone. Yes.
I have a question.
Hi, Joss.
Oh, the input's not working. Can you hear me, Edwina?
I can, yep. I can hear you, Joss. Oh.
Muted again.
Joss? Oh, here we go. Unmute. Try now.
Edwina, can you hear me?
I can.
We can't hear her. Sorry, I can't hear you now. So
she can't hear you, so she doesn't. Okay.
Hi, Joss. Can you hear me?
He's on mute. No, he's off mute.
Never mind.
Joss?
Don't ask this question.
I think Trish is sitting there with you. Nod your head if that's the case, Joss.
Go out and come back in. It's our system, not them.
it must be that we're running through that.
We can hear you, Joss. I can hear you. No, okay. Okay, so is everyone good? If not, you've got my email, you've got my phone number.
Rejoin the Zoom call.
Yes, go.
It's Angela here. I find this slide you've got up now really useful because I find that it does my head in trying to think about the scales and things.
Yeah, yep.
So would you be able to maybe just put a photo of this slide on the Facebook page in case?
Well, how about I put the whole PowerPoint on Facebook?
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
That should work.
Yeah.
And Astrida, you've got a comment?
Just another hint. I've been taking iPhone pictures and they work really well.
Oh, good.
It's been speaking, so that works as well.
Oh,
okay.
So what do you do there? What does that do?
I just get my camera, just get my smartphone and take a photo and it works.
Oh, of the slides.
Yeah.
I see, yeah, okay.
But happy to share,
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
yeah, happy to share the slideshow with you all. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it there. Oh, Alice, one last question.
One last question. Someone was measuring something in our basement the other day and they had an app on their phone.
Oh.
They just like hold it up to something and it measures the points. Obviously, they were like, you're going to measure properly if you're going to cut timber and stuff, but it's a pretty good measurement. Would you recommend something like that for trees or?
I've never used one, but I'd love one. Yeah. I think I saw something recently. I got sent an ad or something and it looked amazing. So, like if you can find an app like that.
I'll just ask what they were using and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, that'd be good. There might be a free app even too. So, okay.
Yeah. And I think, Edwina, I was just going to say, Google, if you go into Google Earth, it will do measurements for you of, like the backyard, the size of the backyard, that kind of thing, in square meters.
Yep.
It's really.
Yeah.
Edwina, it's Joss. Can you hear me?
I can, Joss.
Oh, sorry, I've been struggling with the sound. Well, I've heard you most of the way, but when I wanted to pipe in myself, I was struggling with it a bit. Okay. I just had one question is the slides, particularly, for instance, the one we're looking at right now, the slides that you've been showing us, are we able to get a copy too? Yep.
Definitely. I'll see how big, I think this is over 5 megabytes, this presentation, so I don't know how people's email addresses will handle that. I might try that as well.
That's okay for mine.
Okay. Okay. Also too, often with Gmail will put stuff into promotions or junk mail. So just be checking those during the week because you might get some updates from me. So look, hopefully I'll see some of you. I'll send you a meeting request for Wednesday at 12 p.m. and we'll see how we're going from there.
Awesome.
Great.
If not, I'll see you next Saturday.
Thanks a lot, Edwina.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.